Welcome to the show. Later on in the program, when we look at some viewer emails, I'm going to talk about some pretty consistent criticism that I'm receiving. Not unfair, but I would argue a little bit misplaced, that I'm not being optimistic enough about Kamala Harris's chances in November. Yesterday I was speaking here at the conference in Las Vegas with a bunch of other people, Sam Cedar, Farron Cousins, and others, about the polling situation and the indicators we have as to what's going to happen. And I want to outline for you what I see as the biggest red flag right now in the polling. Now, let me make a couple of disclaimers. After this segment, I'm not going to do any more polling stuff today other than just responding to that email at the end of the show. Ultimately, I don't believe that how I talk about how the polling looks has any impact on the eventual results. I think fundamentally, this program is not big enough, and I'm mostly preaching to people who are already planning to vote for Kamala Harris that I don't see that the way I couch things would really impact results. And number three, I don't think it makes any sense to say we should act more optimistic than the data say because what? Okay, so with that out of the way, here for me is the most concerning polling sign that I see in this race. Real Clear Politics, whatever you think of them, allows you to look not just at what does polling look like today, but what did polling look like for Biden-Trump on this same day in 2020, and what did polling look like for Clinton-Trump on this same day in 2016. And I hate to tell you, it doesn't look particularly good. Right now, Kamala Harris leads by 2 nationally. On this day, in 2020, Biden led by 9, and on this day in 2016, Hillary Clinton led by almost 5. If you look at the swing states, I hate that this is what's going on, but you see the exact same sort of a phenomenon. Right now, Trump is leading by 1.4 in Arizona. On this day in 2020, Biden led by almost 3. And that is a very concerning sign. We'll go through these quickly. In Nevada, Harris is winning by 1, but Biden was winning by 6 at this point. Harris is winning by under 1 in Wisconsin, but Biden was leading by 5.5 in 2020. In Michigan, Kamala Harris is leading by 0.5 point, but on this day in 2020, Biden was leading by almost 7 in Michigan. Pennsylvania, Trump is up by a fraction of a point. Biden led by 7 at this point in 2020. In North Carolina, Trump's up 0.5 point. Biden was winning there by almost 2. And in Georgia, Donald Trump is winning by 1.5, and Georgia was a tie at this point in 2020. So what does this mean? If you believe that this is in any way in the bag for Kamala Harris, look at how drastically she is underperforming the 2020 polling on this day in 2020. Now, there is a caveat here. We learned after the fact that 2020 polling significantly underrepresented in some states Donald Trump's level of support. Trump did better than the polling I showed you from 2020. There were states there that Biden was winning by 7, for example, Pennsylvania. Biden did not ultimately win by 7. So last time around, there was a reality that Trump's level of support, he was losing, right? He did lose, he was losing, but his level of support to some degree was sort of undercounted by some of that swing state polling. But the takeaway here is it's really hard to look at the polling and say Kamala Harris is doing better than Biden did, or even as good as Biden did, as well as Biden did. And so my prediction continues to be, I think the most likely scenario, not by a lot, but by a little, the most likely scenario, plurality outcome, is that Harris wins, but by a smaller margin than Biden in 2020. That's already dangerous and scary in terms of what it might do to MAGA, in terms of being able to successfully convince people that it was rigged, stolen, or whatever. I think there is the next likely outcome, a narrow Trump win, And then the third most likely outcome, I believe, is a Kamala Harris blowout. I don't see any real possibility for a Trump blowout. I think if Trump wins, it'll be narrow. I think most likely if Harris wins, it'll be narrow. But there is this possibility of a Kamala Harris sort of landslide blowout victory. So to anyone who thinks that I am being too negative, understand and acknowledge Kamala Harris is doing worse today in every single one of the battleground states and nationally compared to how Biden was doing on this very same day in 2020, and in most of the cases, doing worse than Hillary Clinton was doing on this very same day in 2016, and Hillary Clinton lost. So what do? Well, we stop saying the problem is negativity. We're being realistic here. We're being realistic, and if we get the turnout, if we make sure people understand the stakes, and they make sure they're registered and they go out and vote over the next 20-something days, then Kamala Harris wins. It is not by any means a guaranteed outcome.
One of our sponsors is Zippix nicotine toothpicks. Don't you think it's time you stopped putting smoke and vape oils in your lungs? Zippix toothpicks are a convenient way to curb the nicotine cravings. Zippix toothpicks are super discreet. You can use them anytime, anywhere smoking and vaping aren't allowed, including flights, sporting events, in restaurants. They're available in 6 different flavors with options of 2 and 3 milligrams of nicotine. If you're not a nicotine user, Zippix also offers caffeine and B12 infused toothpicks. Zippix has already helped tens of thousands of customers ditch the cigarettes, ditch the vapes. They might be able to help you too. If you're a smoker or a vapor, give Zippix toothpicks a try. Your lungs will thank you. Go to zippixtoothpicks.com today. Save 10% with the code PACMAN10 at checkout. Just remember, you must be 21 or older to order. The link is down below.